Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ben here. Today I'm back again with another video. Today I'm going to be discussing the Chicago Bulls. They're basically the 2014 to 17 years. This is a subject that I have somewhat discussed before. I discussed the underrated Chicago Bulls 2014 to 15 season. If you're interested in watching that video right now or after you've watched this one, go back and you can find it in my previous videos. But today I'm going to be basically talking about a really interesting hypothetical that was really interesting to talk about at the time when it was relevant in the NBA, but now I'm revisiting, just looking at it and kind of pondering and wondering what it would have been like. And that is, what if Carmelo Anthony would have gone to the Chicago Bulls in the 2014 offseason? So for a bit of background and context for people, in the summer of 2014, we had Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, Carmelo, and LeBron were all free agents again, 4 years after they had signed their 4-year contracts with either the Heat or the Knicks. But now this time they're all free agents again, all still relatively young. I think LeBron was 29, and then Bosh and Carmelo were 30, and then Wade was like 31. Okay, so but like basically all of them except for Wade still in their primes. And so for Carmelo, it often came up, am I gonna stay in New York or go to Chicago? Because Chicago is pursuing him very hard, and he said ultimately when he re-signed with the Knicks that it was New York number one and Chicago a close second. Most people say that this was the point in his career when people said that like Carmelo clearly chose like money over winning because Chicago essentially offered the better situation for winning a championship, a better opportunity to win it all. But New York could offer a lot more money because that was the team that Carmelo had already played with. Um, so basically, Chicago's plan B was like to sign Pau Gasol and a bunch of role players. So what they did was they signed Pau Gasol, and then along with that, they brought back Kirk Heinrich, they brought in Aaron Brooks, and they finally signed Nikola Mirotic over from Europe, who they had drafted, but he hadn't come over yet. So basically, instead of getting Carmelo, they got Pau, Heinrich, Aaron Brooks, and Mirotic. And those guys performed pretty well for them. Pau Gasol in that season there, he averaged 19 points a game with 12 rebounds a game. And Kirk Heinrich played 66 games and averaged 6 points a game. Aaron Brooks averaged 12 points a game and played in every game that year. And Mirotic played in every game and averaged 10 points a game. So they got some pretty good production from some of those guys. So basically, my video is going to be talking about what would have happened if Carmelo would have signed there instead. So let's quickly look at Carmelo and Anthony's numbers for that season. So for 2015, 14 to 15, he played half the season, 40 games, because he got injured, and he shot 44% from the field, 34% from three, took 16 shots a night, um, averaged 24 points a game, along with 7 rebounds a game and 3 assists a game. So let's just assume that he remains injured. Chicago probably has a down year. They probably they finished with 50 wins this season. They probably finished close to that. I'd say like 48, 47. They're missing a lot of depth by signing Carmelo to this deal and then him being injured. Your starting lineup with Carmelo would look something like Derrick Rose, who had had a good season, Jimmy Butler at the 2, Carmelo at the 3, then probably Gibson at the 4, Taj Gibson, and Joakim Noah at the 5. Off the bench, your main guys are looking like, let's see here, Mike Dunleavy, Etuan Moore, Tony Snell, Doug McDermott. So not a great bench by any means. Mike Dunleavy is probably your best guy off the bench, and you can almost sub in for anybody. You could sub him in for Jimmy Butler and then have him play the 2. You could sub him in for Carmelo, have him play the 3. You could sub him in for Taj Gibson and have Carmelo swap to the 4. You could sub him in for Joakim Noah, have Taj Gibson play some small ball 5, Carmelo play some small ball 4, and then you have Dunleavy at the 3. So Mike Dunleavy could have covered a multitude of positions for this team as a kind of a do-it-all sixth man, but he was getting older at the time anyway, so his role probably would have been similar to what it was, like play 30 minutes a night, but not really do that much for the team. So ultimately, I do think that they would have been a bit worse, but I think if Carmelo would have been healthy for the playoffs, that could have been a different story. And then we could have seen what would have happened. You know, they got to the second round versus the Cavs and lost in 6 games, but maybe having Carmelo Anthony to go up against LeBron and tire LeBron out a bit more on defense would have helped them. Um, I think that Carmelo at the time was better than what Pau Gasol was for them, so ultimately I think that it would have helped them having him. So the next season, the Bulls finished 42 and 40 and missed the playoffs by 2 games. I think basically at this point you sub in Carmelo for um, Pau Gasol again, really. And let's see here. What did Pau average the next season? So Pau Gasol this season averaged 17 and 11, so slightly worse, but still pretty productive. Derrick Rose and Jimmy were again healthy. Jimmy averaging 21, Derrick Rose 16. The year before they averaged about the same. Jimmy averaged about 20, and then Derrick Rose averaged about 18 the season before. Um, yeah, so you see a lot of similar production. The only difference in 15 to 16 was that Joakim Noah was out most of the year, so you had Pau Gasol playing more of the 5, and then you had like Taj Gibson playing the 4 as a starter. So let's sub in Carmelo Anthony to this scenario, and let's say that eventually Nikola Mirotic does decide to come over from Europe. So you could have him sort of as a small ball center. But in this season, Carmelo Anthony played the whole season, averaged 22 points a game, 43% from the field on 14 shots a night, 34% from three-point land. He averaged 8 rebounds a game along with 4 assists. So pretty good numbers. He could be a pretty good like second option to Jimmy Butler on this team possibly. They missed the playoffs by, let's see here, two games. I think that they would have made it with Carmelo, even if it means no Pau Gasol. Their starting lineup would have looked something like Derrick Rose, Jimmy Butler, probably at this point still going to have Mike Dunleavy starting, and then probably Carmelo at the 4, and then at the 5, this is where it gets kind of iffy, but probably Taj Gibson at the 5. Or you could say Mirotic too, one or the other. Mirotic is like 6'10 and 6'11, so he could start as sort of like a small center. But again, I think it's enough for them to slightly overcome, make the 8 seed, probably then lose to Cleveland in the second round, honestly. Or the first round, excuse me, much like Detroit lost to Cleveland in the first round. Okay, so then the next season you got 16 to 17. They saw a lot of turnover this year, but we got to remember Carmelo would have still been under contract because he would have signed a 4-year deal with them. So Carmelo in 16 to 17 averaged 22 a game, along with 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 43% from the field, 36% from 3 on 13 shots a night. The Bulls this season brought in D Wade and Rondo, which would have still happened, I think, because they still had, well, actually probably D Wade would that's debatable, but let's just say that it still happens where instead of signing Robin Lopez, they signed they had Carmelo, so they didn't sign him, and then they just brought in Rondo and Wade. Still, the starting lineup would probably have looked like Rondo, Wade, Butler, probably then Carmelo at the 4 at this point, and then at the 5 you're probably gonna see Nikola Mirotic still, with Taj Gibson off the bench, along with Doug McDermott off the bench, and those are your main guys off the bench, really. So not much depth again, but you do have Melo probably going to average around 20 to 22 a game. Butler averaging 24 this year. Wade averaged 18. Taj Gibson averaged 12 and 7. Rondo didn't do great, averaged 8 points and 7 rebounds. So you still got Mirotic and McDermott both averaging 10 a game, which is pretty good. But honestly, I see this team still finishing like low in the East because again, they do have Carmelo who's shooting inefficiently basically, and they have him, but he wasn't that great at this point. I don't think that he would be that markedly better than just having signed like Robin Lopez and some other backup guys like they did. They finished as the 8th seed in the real world. I think, maybe with Carmelo they finished a game or 2 better, which actually, let's see here. If they finish 2 games better, they would have gone from the 8th seed to the 5 seed, and then they would have played Washington in the first round, who had 49 wins. as the 5. I still think Chicago would have lost to that team though. Um, Rondo went down injured in the playoffs, and they didn't really know what to do. And I don't think Carmelo would have been the solution necessarily. But I think that you could argue that you could argue that they would have won that series and gotten to the second round. But then again, I would have argued that they would have just lost to Boston in the second round. So like optimistically, you could say that that year, instead of losing in the first round, they lose in the second round. After that, I think they still would have gotten rid of Carmelo Anthony, like how they got rid of Butler and Wade as well. They all went away. So basically, what am I seeing from this team? I think that the difference is because of a myriad of injuries. I still think the Bulls lose in the first round, both in 2000. They lose in the second round still in 2015. They probably make the playoffs in 2016, but lose in the first round, and then they probably make a higher seed in 2017 and maybe get to the second round depending on how you see that matchup with them versus the Wizards. But I guess what I'm surprised by is looking at all these numbers, looking at the standings, looking at how they finished, how the Bulls seasons progressed in these years. I don't really think the Bulls would have been all that much better. 2015, I don't think that Carmelo instead of Pau Gasol would put them over the top against the Cavs. 2016, having Carmelo probably squeaks them another 2 games and gets them into the playoffs, but again, just to probably be beaten up by the Cavs. And then 2017, you could say, he maybe makes them 2 to 3 games better, which gets them up to the 5 seed instead of the 8. They get the Wizards in the first round instead. But again, I think that this year with this Wizards team, which was doing really well, I still think that they're better than this Bulls team with an aging Carmelo Anthony and Dwayne Wade and Rondo. I kind of thought going into this, looking at it, that the Bulls would be like, oh, like they're the 2 seed every year now with Jimmy Butler and Carmelo Anthony as their core. But really, with the injuries that they faced besides those guys and the injuries Carmelo himself faced, they wouldn't have then been that markedly better. That being said, I think in retrospect it wasn't a bad thing that the Bulls didn't sign him. They really didn't. They really wouldn't have improved that drastically with him, anyways. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you found it interesting. I had fun researching this topic. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with me or have any thoughts on the subject. Maybe you think that the Bulls would have won a championship with a core of Butler, D. Rose, and Carmelo. I personally don't, but I'd love to hear from you guys. Again, have a great day. Bye.